Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining me here today. We're going to start with some opening prayers. There's a link to the opening prayers in the description of this video, and we will say these in Tibetan, but feel free to read along in English if you prefer. The first prayer we will chant 3 times. Organ yugi numjan sam pemage sa dompola yatsen chogi ngorupe pema jone jesura kordu kandro mangpo kor ketki jesu dao druki jinji lop chia shek su so Guru Pema Siddhi Home. Organ Yogi Numjan Sam Pema Ge Sa Dompola Yatsen Chogi Ngodrup Me Pema Jone Jesurak Kordu Kandro Mangpo Kor Ketki Jesu Dao Druki Jinji Lop Chia Shek Su So Guru Pema Siddhi Home. Organ Yogi Numjan Sam Pema Ge Sa Dompola Yatsen Chogi Ngodrup Me Pema Jone Jesurak Kordu Kandro Mangpo Kor Ketki Jesu Dao Druki Jinji Lop Chia Shek Su So Guru Pema Siddhi Home. Continuing on, we'll do these 1 time each. Kunzan dosem garab shiri sing pema kara jebani shunga sozo nupna taten gata sok kate lama namla sowadem. Omen choki inki podrana dusum sange kongi ngonyet rangsem choko ngunsum tonse pe tawe lama namla sowadeb. Sashi pochu chuching meto tram rirab ningji nide kempadi sange zingdu mikte powahi drogunam dashing na chuparshok tram guru ratna mandala putsa mega samudra saparana samaya home. Semchen namki sampadang lohi che jagjita var che chonto monte pai choki korlo kordu so. All right, so as usual, we're going to start with a meditation to calm and stabilize our minds. Meditation is the natural state of mind when it is relaxed, stable, and open. Meditating in this way trains our mind to be calm and relaxed, but also alert and wakeful. And the point of meditation is to create space in our minds. Creating space in the mind helps us to balance our emotions. So we're not just reacting suddenly to every little thing that happens to us. This allows us to have some space between the action and the reaction. And this is the first step in the development of bodhicitta, which is the heart of wisdom, compassion, and the compassionate wish to free all sentient beings from suffering. So we need to create a little bit of space for that compassion to arise. So we're going to take a comfortable seat. You can either sit cross-legged on the floor like I am, or you can sit in a chair. But either way, you want your back to be straight. You can open your shoulders. You've got some room here between your elbows and your rib cage. Your hands can be on your knees, or you can put your right hand in your left with your thumbs touching and place your hands just below your navel. Your eyes are going to remain open. You're going to look slightly down following the line of the bridge of your nose. So looking gently downward, eyes open, find a point along that line where it's comfortable to rest your gaze. And then lastly, place the tip of your tongue gently behind your front teeth. Allow yourself to relax completely and breathe normally. You might need to take a couple big breaths to just let it out. That's okay. And then put a very light attention on your breathing. Don't try to control your breath. Just breathe naturally with the most gossamer thin attention on the surface of your breath. It's like taking your pulse. You don't put any pressure on it. You just observe it. Your attention is like a feather gently riding on the surface of your breath. And when thoughts come up, just let them go, like bubbles popping on the surface of a pond. You don't have to look to see what they are. You don't have to follow them down the road. When you find yourself following a thought, just drop it and return to your breath. Just return to your breath again and again. And we'll meditate like that for 5 minutes. All right. So 5 minutes wasn't so bad, was it? This meditation is kind of like teaching a dog to heel. Usually our minds are like a dog that leads us around on a leash, and we just follow it anywhere it goes. Anywhere its little nose wants to sniff, we're following it everywhere we go. And with this meditation, it's okay if your entire meditation is just, oh, I lost it, back to the breath. Oh, back to the breath. Oh, back to the breath. If you spend the entire time just reminding yourself to come back to your breath, that's okay. It's okay if you don't have a long, continuous moment of focus. That's just evidence of how habituated we are to letting our minds run the show. So sometimes when you get a new dog, you have to teach them how to heel. You spend an entire walk like that. Nope, sit. Nope, you stay behind me, sit. Nope, you're doing this, sit. So that's okay. It's productive. It's helpful. And over time, your mind will start to settle down and you'll be able to focus more and you'll have more spaciousness. And if you want more practice meditating in this way, KPC has meditations on Saturday and Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. And you can join on our YouTube channel. Those are longer. I think those are an hour long. It's okay to even just meditate for a couple minutes every day. It's really helpful. So today I wanted to talk about the 8 worldly concerns. These are the concerns that motivate us in just about every action that we take. And although we like to think of ourselves as kind, generous, compassionate people, and we may even appear this way to others, we may seem very kind on the outside and pleasant and peaceful. And if we look closely at our habits and at our own minds, we'll discover that we're actually quite self-absorbed. Even when we're kind to others, it's usually in some way somewhat self-serving. And we're so habituated in this way that we even are able to turn our Dharma practice into a pursuit of personal worldly happiness. We're extremely skilled at making things be all about ourselves. Dzogchen Khyentse Rinpoche said, most of us are not Dharma practitioners at all. We may be Dharma students who are interested in and inspired by the Dharma, but to be a practitioner is quite a different matter. A practitioner can both see the futility of the 8 worldly dharmas, or concerns, and make the extremely difficult but not impossible heroic effort necessary to give them up. On the other hand, the whole point of study for a student of Dharma is bound up in the 8 worldly dharmas. We study because we are ambitious and want to increase our knowledge, or win the heart of another innocent and naive Dharma student, or become a spiritual guru of one sort or another. So by making it all about ourselves, we're able to even turn our Dharma practice into some worldly BS. We are on the path of Dharma because we want to wake up from delusion. We want to actualize the good qualities of our true nature, our Buddha nature. And to do this, we have to be unflinchingly honest about our motivations. Our motivations determine the directions of our actions. Just like when an archer shoots an arrow, their aim determines where the arrow is going to strike. So we always want to start with our motivation. What is our motivation for any action that we take? If we want to achieve liberation from the suffering of cyclic existence, not just for ourselves, but for all beings, we have to untangle ourselves from the worldly distractions that blind us and confuse our aim. Our obsession with worldly concerns keeps us mired in the quicksand of samsara. We pursue these concerns because we think they're going to make us happy. We think, oh, if only I had more money, if I had a bigger house, if I found the love of my life, if I could just have children or grandchildren, or if I could travel the world, if I could just have a trip to Thailand, then I'd be happy. But you're not. Maybe you get that thing, maybe you don't. But even if you get it, you just want more and more and more. Okay, now you've been to Thailand. Now you want to go to Paris. Now you want to go to Hawaii. You had one kid, now you want two. You found the love of your life. Maybe they're not the love of your life. Maybe you get divorced. You want a different guy. We waste our lives by hanging our hopes on things that have no real value, that are going to vanish before our eyes, either during our lifetimes or at the end of our lives, when we ultimately will die. And contrary to many popular meditation books, worldly happiness is not the goal of Dharma. Will meditation make you more productive or richer or more successful or more beautiful? Who cares? It's not the point. The point of everything we do on the path of Dharma is to wake up, to awaken bodhicitta, the heart of wisdom, compassion, to liberate all beings from suffering. That is not about us. That's not about our momentary happiness. So we have to renounce our obsession with ourselves and our obsession with our personal happiness. We have to come to understand the faults of cyclic existence, that all of its promises of happiness are lies and illusions, and the only true refuge is the Dharma. Jamgon Kongtrul Lodro Tai said that if deep down you continue to believe a tiny corner of samsara could be useful, or that it might even offer the ultimate solution to all your worldly problems, it will be extremely difficult to become a genuine spiritual seeker. And Dzongzar Jamyang Khyentse Rinpoche said, it is vital to understand that however positive this worldly life, or even a small part of it, may appear to be, ultimately, it will fail because absolutely nothing genuinely works in samsara. It is a very difficult attitude to adopt, but if we can at least accept it on an intellectual level, it will provide us with just the incentive we need to step onto the spiritual path. The bottom line, though, is that only once a beginner truly appreciates just how hopeless and purposeless samsara really is, will a genuine aspiration to follow a spiritual path arise in his mind. The Shakyamuni Buddha explained that there are 4 inescapable realities that destroy all sentient beings. We will all become old and frail. It's absolutely certain that everything will constantly change. Everything we achieve or accumulate will eventually fall apart and scatter, and we're all bound to die. And if we pay attention, we can see this for ourselves. Who do you know that doesn't age? Who do you know that will not die? Think of historical figures of the past. Why are they not here with us anymore? Because they died. Because every person throughout history has died, just like we will. There's no one person who's just, boy, they're still kicking it. They've been around for 1,000 years. No, they've all died. Everyone lives a standard human lifespan or less, and then they die. But our emotions and our habits are so strong that even when this truth is staring at us in the face, we can't see it. We don't want to see it. And Dzongzar Jamyang Khyentse Rinpoche said, in addition to recognizing the futility of samsara, the point of Dharma practice is that it penetrates our minds and diminishes our affection for our ego and worldly life by pressing us to detach ourselves from the 8 worldly dharmas. Practice should intensify our devotion to the truth, increase the value we place on going beyond the worldly, should never contradict the essential teachings of the Buddha, and be in complete accord with his ultimate teachings, And if our version of practice fails to accomplish all this, it's not real Dharma practice. However beneficial a practice appears to be, however politically correct or exciting, if it does not contradict your habit of grasping at permanence, or looks harmless, but insidiously encourages you to forget the truth of impermanence and the illusory nature of phenomena, it will inevitably take you in the opposite direction to Dharma. So we'd be very careful discerning Dharma practitioners with that advice. There are a lot of spiritual teachers out there who use meditation and other practices to really just entrench the idea that you can make the here and now your bliss. You can be comfortable now. Just do this meditation, just do this practice, and all your problems will be solved. You'll be successful. You'll be great at your job. You'll do all this. Dharma isn't about that. The Dharma is about renouncing all of those attachments. So what are these 8 worldly concerns that we need to renounce? The 8 worldly concerns, or worldly dharmas, dharma means like truth. So it's like worldly truths. The 8 worldly concerns are seeking pleasure, fame, gain, and praise, while avoiding pain, insignificance, loss, and blame. So if we look at our lives, if we look at our minds and our habits, we can see, we pull back the curtain, we can see that these are the characters pulling the strings for all of our actions. Seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. Every living being does that. Every living being naturally seeks pleasure and avoids pain. You want, to be in a place that is of a comfortable temperature. You see, you're sitting somewhere in the sun, you get too hot, you move to the shade. You're cold in your house, you put on a sweater. You're constantly checking in with yourself to see, is there a way that I can be seeking pleasure in this moment and avoiding pain? Constantly reacting to our environment with that personal desire to seek pleasure and avoid pain. How else do we seek pleasure? We eat delicious food. We drink wine. We want to hang out with our friends. We go to the movies. We go on cruises. We want to avoid the pain of boredom, so we fill our time with anything we can possibly think of, with books, TV, social media. We spend our time playing video games, gossiping. Maybe what brings us pleasure is making art or going out in nature. Even if it seems completely peaceful, like a peaceful activity, still ultimately what you're doing is seeking pleasure for yourself, trying to avoid the pain of some uncomfortable circumstance. The next one is seeking fame and avoiding insignificance. So seeking fame, not everyone wants to be famous, like Tom Cruise kind of famous. Not everyone wants that. But all of us want to have a good reputation. All of us care what others think about us. We may have a limited number of people whose opinions that we care about, but we still care what they think of us. And we don't want to be insignificant or have a bad reputation. Some of us might think, boy, I wouldn't mind insignificance. I kind of like to be invisible. I like being like I'm a wallflower. I don't really want anyone to notice me. But that's not true for everyone in your life. Think about the pain of people whose parents develop Alzheimer's and don't remember who they are. How awful that is to have the mother who raised you no longer know who you are. That kind of insignificance would be extremely painful, even for a wallflower. If the people that you loved in your life suddenly you were insignificant to them, that would be extremely painful. So it's not necessarily fame, but it's about our reputation and the way that people regard us, what they think of us. We all care very deeply about that. Seeking gain and avoiding loss. Well, this is what capitalism tells us all to do. We're very good at this. We seek gain all the time. We want more money. We need money so we can get a house, so we can build up our fortunes. Maybe we want to retire. Maybe we want, even if you want to gain wealth so that you can pass it on to your children or something like that. Like, it's not about me. It's about my kids. It's your kids. It's still about you. It's still your family, your personal concern. That is not the vast intention of the bodhicitta that considers all sentient beings. And we seek praise and we avoid criticism. So that's clear. We always want to, behave in a way where people praise us and don't criticize us or blame us for something. How often are we kind of trying to make up an excuse for something so we can avoid blame? Like, oh no, that really wasn't what I was trying to do. I didn't know, I wouldn't have done that. Even if it's very clearly what you did, you definitely want to come up with a story that explains it so the person doesn't blame you or criticize you. These are the motivations that constantly drive all of our actions. And we even engage in destructive behaviors to achieve them, such as lying or stealing or lashing out in anger. Even if we have decent external conduct, if we're motivated by these worldly concerns, our actions will not be of benefit. And we really, if you think about just some mundane moment in your day, you can see these at play. Like, for instance, let's say you're driving and someone cuts you off on the highway, or you're stuck in, maybe you're stuck in traffic and you're trying to get to work as fast as you can and someone cuts you off and you get angry. Maybe you act in a way that's not very responsible as a driver. Maybe you tailgate them or you flip them off, you honk your horn. Why does that make you so angry? You're still basically in the same place on the road. There's one car ahead of you. It really doesn't change how long it takes you to get to your destination, right? So sometimes someone cuts in front of us and it makes us scared that we had to slam on the brakes real fast. We're afraid we might lose our lives. Loss. We might be afraid that we might be so amped up in the first place because we're in a rush to get to work, because we're worried about, how we'll be perceived if we're late. Might be worried that we'll lose our job. And then when we have that moment of anger, maybe we don't want to let it go. Maybe we want to keep it with us because the feeling of anger makes us feel right. We feel righteous and it makes us feel bigger than that person or more powerful. And we don't want to give that up. We don't want to lose that feeling by letting the anger go and being compassionate, even though that anger is making us miserable. And then we go through the rest of our day being grumpy. We don't want to let it go because we're right. And we don't want to lose that. So, it's like we're basically toddlers. We're not really we don't have a whole lot more going on in us. We just got bigger bodies and we can drive cars now, but we're basically toddlers. We just care about these very simple worldly concerns with everything we do. I'll give another example. So an example from my own life, for instance, is so I love sleeping. I love sleeping. I like to sleep in. I need like a million alarms to get up in the morning. I like sleeping in. So in the morning, I want to stay in the comfortable pleasure of my warm bed. I'm seeking pleasure. I want to avoid the pain, the unpleasant experience of the cold air outside the bed. Usually I can entice myself out of bed with the thought of coffee. Coffee's great. I like that experience. I can have the pleasurable experience of a cup of coffee, and that's a pretty good trade. Lately, I haven't been drinking coffee, so it's more difficult. So I shift to other worldly concerns. Well, if I'm late to work, I'll be criticized. I might get a bad reputation as being lazy or having bad time management. I might already have that. I think I already have a reputation as having bad time management. But I'd like to avoid that. I would much prefer to be praised. I might even take it a step further and think that I could lose my job. Maybe I've been late a couple times already. Maybe, oh no, if I'm late to that meeting, that's an important meeting. I could lose my job if I'm late to that. So motivated by these worldly concerns, I eventually get out of bed. But if I was motivated by bodhicitta, I would have a very different morning. I would wake up and think how fortunate I am that I didn't die during the night, that I didn't die in my sleep, and now I have more time in this precious human rebirth. And knowing that any breath could be my last, I would commit to using every moment for the benefit of all sentient beings. And that kind of motivation, that's what should be getting us out of bed in the morning. So is that what gets you out of bed in the morning? The bodhicitta? I hope so. So instead of being obsessed with these worldly concerns, it's good to develop the attitude of a crazy person, harboring no preference for or aversion to any of the 8 worldly dharmas. For example, caring nothing for either praise or criticism. And there are examples of this, great bodhisattvas who had crazy wisdom and displayed this, having no concern for how others perceive them. And Tilopa is a good example of that. If you ran into Tilopa, he would probably be naked, maybe wearing a G-string, probably have a live fish dangling from his mouth. He would look like a madman. Dzongsa Khyentse Rinpoche said, "Right now, the majority of us can only afford to be slightly nonconformist, yet we should aspire to be like Tilopa. We should pray that one day we will have the courage to be just as crazy by daring to go beyond the 8 worldly dharmas and care not one jot about whether or not we are praised or criticized." In today's world, such an attitude is the ultimate craziness. More than ever, people expect to be happy when they are admired and praised, and unhappy when derided and criticized. And so it is unlikely that those who want the world to perceive them as sane will risk flying from the nest of the 8 worldly dharmas. Sublime beings, though, couldn't care less either way. And that is why, from our mundane point of view, they are considered crazy. So instead of acting from these worldly concerns, we should instead act with the bodhicitta motivation, with that heart of wisdom, compassion, the wish to liberate all sentient beings from suffering. And with true bodhicitta, no matter what your actions look like to others, whether they look crazy, whether they look wrathful, whether they look nonsensical, no matter what your actions look like, with true bodhicitta, it will be of benefit. Tenli Norbu Rinpoche said, "If we only react with self-interest to whatever circumstances appear, we will make choices based on trying to find temporary satisfaction. But this effort is always ultimately hopeless, since everything within samsara is uncertain because it is changing. Through the short-sightedness of our habit, we do not even notice that we are missing what is meaningful. like someone who eagerly chooses to eat a cow's red meat instead of continuously drinking its white milk. If we believe that mind is continuous, our love for others becomes continuous. If we recognize this continuity, we do not trust temporary, tangible circumstances or take them too seriously. Since it is tiring to switch between changing uncertainties which are inherently impermanent and unimportant, we become less easily influenced by any circumstance. This creates the habit of stability so that our minds are less erratic, our lives are less chaotic, and our feelings for others are less changeable, which causes love to be increasingly deep and loyal. So one way that we can break the spell of the 8 worldly concerns is by contemplating impermanence. We should remember that our physical body is impermanent. We all have an expiration date. And we don't want to believe it, but it's true. And we're fooling ourselves if we think that death is a long ways away, that we're going to live till we're 80, 90, whatever. We're fooling ourselves. We can't know that. Every day we see the truth of impermanence in the news: car crashes, airplane crashes, murders, natural disasters. How many of the people whose deaths we read about planned to be home for dinner that night, had weekend plans, retirement plans? We think that death will come after all that we've planned, but that's not how it works. All of our stories, at some point, all of our stories will end mid-sentence. Our mental capabilities are also impermanent. Even our values change as we age. When we were infants, what was most important to us was our mother. And then we got a little older and we became interested in toys and friends and school. And then we got a little older and now we don't care about toys. And now our interest might be in work and romantic relationships, marriage, children. And how often do you think of your mother now? She was so important at the beginning of your life. Chagda Tuku Rinpoche said, "Everything in our lives, possessions, wealth, relationships, is temporary and constantly changing. Our body, speech, mind, and environment change minute by minute, second by second. In the time it takes a needle to pierce a stack of 60 flower petals cupped like spoons, not one thing in the universe stays the same. Our worst enemy could someday become our best friend. Our best friend eventually our worst enemy. Husbands and wives so in love that they cannot bear to spend an hour apart might, after a few years, be repulsed by the very sight of each other. There is nothing that is not fluctuating, decaying, or transforming. So we devote our lives to following our urges, satisfying our cravings, these momentary, temporal, worldly cravings. But whatever happiness we find is fleeting. How often have you been happy? How often have you been sad? How often have you been angry? How often have you been jealous? Our emotions come and go all the time. All the time. Like a drawing traced on water, they're visible for a brief moment and then they vanish. No matter how wonderful our family or career or possessions may be, we can't take any of them with us when we die. The day after we die, our loved ones won't even want our corpse in the house. We have lived for countless lifetimes. Countless lifetimes. Chagda Tuku Rinpoche says, "We have had so many bodies over innumerable lifetimes that if they were piled one on top of the other, they would resemble a great mountain. We have shed oceans of tears, committed good and bad actions beyond number, and died countless times. Throughout all these lives, we have suffered because of attachment. If we understand that the objects of our attachment are like mirages or bubbles, our attachment will loosen. If we know that every relationship is fragile and likely to change, we will realize there's no time for conflict. If we truly comprehend that we cannot count on even one more day, at least we won't destroy our own and others' chances to enjoy this life while we have it. So there's a story about the great Tibetan yogi Milarepa. He used to meditate naked on a mountainside under extremely harsh conditions. His sister gave him some cloth to make robes, but when she came to see him, she saw that he hadn't used it. And so she said, "You're crazy. With very little effort, you could have made some robes to protect yourself from the elements, from the cold, the wind, the snow. You're out here on this mountainside naked. You're nuts." The Milarepa thought that she was the crazy one because in itself, sewing the cloth to make robes wouldn't have brought him any closer to enlightenment. And the time it would have taken him to make robes, he had come to the understanding in meditation that no matter how good or bad things are, they come and go. He saw no need for robes. And his realization actually gave him all the protection he needed. And by the power of his practice, he experienced warmth and bliss, even while sitting naked in the snow, while others suffer while sitting in warm clothes on soft cushions in their nice, sturdy houses. So contemplating impermanence is very important. Then we can be like Milarepa. We can understand the futility of following our worldly concerns, of following those worldly cravings. But a mere theoretical understanding of impermanence won't do much. We've got some really deep-seated habits here. So we need to truly assimilate its meaning through meditation. Otherwise, we'll continue to grasp at things that will certainly fail us. So we're going to close with a contemplation or analytical meditation. Analytical meditation works with the mind's natural quality of movement and helps us to change our deeply ingrained thought patterns. And we'll alternate periods of contemplation with periods of rest. So during the contemplation, keep your mind gently focused on the topic. And then when you rest your mind, just leave it alone. Just let it be. Resting the mind in a non-conceptual state cuts the mind's attachment to concepts. Its habit of always thinking of the past or future, likes and dislikes. All of that thinking is like constantly stirring the water in a muddy pond, never letting it settle and clarify. By allowing the mind to relax into its natural state, we work with the mind's self-seeing or self-knowing quality. And Chagda Tuku says, when we alternate these two methods, slowly and subtly our perspective begins to change. What starts as intellectual understanding gradually becomes more personal and experiential. So the contemplation is pretty self-explanatory. We're pretty good at thinking. This is just staying focused, thinking about a particular topic. But allowing the mind to rest, what does that mean? Allowing the mind to rest is an effortless process that reveals an indwelling awareness, an awareness that is non-dual, not a subjective awareness of an object. Usually when people meditate, they try to do something. For instance, in our earlier meditation, we were trying to stay focused on our breath. Instead of trying to do something or letting the mind rest, we just let it relax, let it rest. Don't block it, don't follow it. just let it be. We're letting our mind rest in the spontaneously open space in which thoughts arise and subside. So all sorts of thoughts about the past or future will naturally occur, but don't grasp at them, don't follow them, don't suppress them or push them away. Just let it be. And then when your mind feels full of concepts and stagnant, no longer fresh, then you drop that's when you drop the contemplation and relax the mind. And then you only allow your mind to relax as long as it remains truly restful. You'll notice that you've become distracted after a bit. And once you notice you've lost your meditation of thought, then you move to the next analytical meditation. And then when that gets stagnant, you relax the mind, and so on. So one way I like to think about this is that it's like playing on the monkey bars on the playground. So when we're contemplating, it's like we're on the monkey bars, going as far as we can on the monkey bars, staying focused. This is our topic. Going on the monkey bars, thinking about our topic. And then when our arms get tired, meaning the contemplation gets stale, you let go of the monkey bars. You just let go. And this is the moment of rest. You're not trying to do anything at this moment. You just let go. And you let your mind be. And pretty soon, you'll find yourself running around the playground of conceptual thoughts again. And so you start on the next set of monkey bars, the next contemplation. And you repeat that. So since we're meditating all together, I'm going to use a timer at preset intervals. But if you practice by yourself, you can determine when it's time to move to the next step by watching your mind, noticing when your contemplation is getting stale, noticing when your rest is no longer restful, you're running around the playground again. So, but for today, we're going to use timers. So what we're going to contemplate is we're going to contemplate the impermanence of our worldly concerns. That's where we're going to start. So just pick one to start with. If you think of one, you want to move on to another, that's fine. I don't know if you're going to have time to go through all 8 of them, but pick one that stands out to you. Maybe gain. What are you going to gain in this life? All your wealth that you gain, where does it go when you die? Do you get to take it with you? No. Or your reputation, same thing. Pick one of these. And we're going to contemplate the impermanence of these worldly concerns. All right, here we go. You can just sit in your meditation posture like before. I accidentally clicked the wrong timer, so we're doing a very long contemplation. Start again, it's a little bit shorter. Keep going with focusing on your worldly concerns. If you think about your reputation, who do you care about? Who do you care about when they think of you? How they think of you? You care about what your high school friends thought of you? That was important then. Is it important now? What do you hope to gain in this life? How long will it last? And now let the mind rest. Now, generate compassion in relation to your contemplation. Think of all the beings that are suffering like you are. And let the mind rest again. Now consider a commitment that you feel ready to make in relation to your contemplation. Again, let the mind rest. Formulate a prayer in relation to your contemplation. And again, let the mind rest. Now we'll end with the dedication prayer. It's on the last page of the opening and closing prayers packet. By this effort, may all sentient beings be free of suffering. May their minds be filled with the nectar of virtue. In this way, may all causes resulting in suffering be extinguished, and only the light of compassion shine throughout all realms.